Welcome back to Gale Force Winds Season 2.
The Gale Force Winds podcast is proudly sponsored by Newfound Marketing, a digital marketing agency located in St. John's, Newfoundland. Newfound Marketing builds cost-effective digital marketing solutions to help organizations unlock their online growth potential. Newfound Marketing's team of experts works with their clients from start to finish to deliver solutions that convert. Visit our website at newfoundmarketing.ca to find out how we can help your business grow. Newfound Marketing, a complement to your marketing team.
And welcome to another edition of Gale Force Winds. And I'm Allan Dale. This is my good buddy from the east end of St. John's, Gerry Carew. How are you, Gerry?
I know I get on, and I'm probably boring our people that follow us, but this is extremely exciting for me. We've done an incredible amount of work in the last 2 weeks. We were in Greece 4 or 5 days ago, a bit of jet lag. I reached out to this gentleman who actually owns this beautiful property, and he got back to me within 10 minutes. We're on a journey, Allan. We're on a journey of talking to entrepreneurs. The fact that someone with such an established business like Stan has would get back to me and actually show up here is really exciting, and we're going to dig into his journey.
I can't wait to get to it, Gerry. It's going to be fun. It's certainly a beautiful setting we're in, so it's going to be relaxing.
Not bad.
Stan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, gentlemen, first of all, welcome. I'm glad you're down to the islands, and I'm responsible for a few Canadians, especially people from Atlantic Canada, making their way down and starting great businesses here as well. So who knows? Maybe I'll recruit a few more through this. But look, it's just been an incredible journey. The Turks and Caicos, especially for Canadians, is an unbelievable spot. A lot of people have sort of planned longer-term residency here over time. Because of just the way that the tax is set up, and it's very favorable for Canadians who can truly be non-resident. So I think that's been a big part of the growth of the market, is people wanting to do legitimate long-term planning. And the other thing that really exploded for us over the past 20 years, that when I first got here, I remember just being so excited I downloaded a 1 megabyte file through the internet, and that was back in the squealy days when you were still trying to dial up and get a drawing for a building. And when you think how that's exploded, it's completely transformed people's ability to be here. And not just be here because you have to shut everything down and tell everybody in the office that they can't get a hold of you for a week, but in a way where you can come and live here for a month.
Right.
And we know what the pandemic has done even more to elevate that now, with people not feeling apologetic about working remotely. Right?
Yeah.
You used to apologize. Oh, sorry guys, I'm somewhere else right now, and I'll have to join the meeting on a phone call or whatever. And now it's just, of course, I'm away.
Well, it's funny, Stan.
Else,
Allan and I started this on Zoom, and the fact that we're here sitting in front of you now with this beautiful sunshine is amazing to us.
Oh, I thought this was a background for
Yeah,
a Zoom
it's a green
screen.
Well, you know what? You'll laugh at this, but we did a video, didn't we? And there was multiple people said, "Guys, where are you really? Like, that's a green screen. It
Right.
looks so beautiful here."
Right.
And again, I just want to say thank you for all the assistance you've given myself and Allan. You have facilitated our stay in the Turks and Caicos to help the Canadian Navy get their message out, and I really appreciate that. You didn't have to do that.
No, I appreciate it, but that's also, in part, I have a dear friend, Fred George, and he's very passionate about that. So if Fred's passionate about something, you're passionate about something.
About it.
It's going to happen. So
Yeah, that's right.
just admit it. Yeah, no. So it was great. We were glad to be able to be involved, to be honest with
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Stan, you jumped right into the Turks and Caicos, and I can see why. It's a beautiful place. Tell us about growing up. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, look, I'm the guy from the little village down in Tantallon, voted probably least likely to succeed in high school, maybe least likely to survive, to be honest with you. But just changed the direction of that journey, and I always knew sometime it was going to happen and start to turn around. So I always try to really encourage a lot of, especially youth, that think that, well, I'm not off to a great start, not straight A guy, I'm not this, and I'm a prime example that you don't need to start there. It's great if you can, but anytime you start changing a direction, that's a favorable thing, and you can choose to do that at 20, 30, 40, whatever you want, 50. I mean, it's just a change in direction in a positive way and so that was a big part for me. I mean, I wouldn't have expected to even come out of university, let alone graduate with honors and end up in a CA program and work the journey that we have to get here. But I think the one thing that I was fortunate with was always, the one underlying thing for me was always wanted to do something entrepreneurial.
Okay.
And
Any entrepreneurial people in your family?
ironically, not a soul.
Not a soul.
Not a soul.
Not one
My dad
person.
thought that putting money under a mattress was a risky thing. I mean, he just didn't. It was so funny. He would come down here, and now we have about 700 employees here. But even then, when I had a couple hundred, Dad would come down to visit, and he'd say, "Well, that door over there. Let's open that. What's in there?" I said, "Well, I don't have the key to that, Dad." Jeez. You run this place? And you
don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, so he was just a great guy, best friend.
Yeah.
And
Is your dad still alive?
He's not.
No.
But he, fortunately got to see a lot of what was going on down here, and would get down while his health allowed him, and it was just awesome to have him a part of it and see it grow. But yeah, it's so funny. He just, it was a totally different perspective. So that's where the CA program came in. And I often say to people that say, well, I don't have the business connections, well, then you got to find a way to put yourself in front of those people, and you got to find a way that you deserve to be in front of them. And my way was to get into the CA program, and I very specifically got into that because it was a way to get into the boardroom. I had no other way into the boardroom, you know what I mean? And that wasn't because somebody knew somebody that could say, come on, Stan, get in here and do that. So the CA program was a wonderful way to get yourself in front of some influential people that already had respect for you because you were academically doing something, good. And so that was a real critical point for me to sort of branch off and get into the entrepreneurial side.
And were there any mentors in that program that you remember, people that stood out that helped you along the way?
The two people that I really had a mentor with was the guys when I finally broke out and became partners with. That was a set of brothers that we got introduced to, and it was a long, funny story. But I was working with the shipyards at the time as a client, and ended up getting along very well with the VP, and over a piece of tinfoil completely changed my life.
Tell us about that.
You want to know about that?
Oh, yes, sir. Listen, Stan, the way you've positioned yourself as the guy who's least likely to succeed, we need 3 hours here, but we're not going to take that much of your time. Go ahead, yes, please, tell us.
It's a funny story. I always say to people, just constantly be helpful, be creative, and it will eventually pay off. Everybody says, oh, I did that for 2 weeks and nothing happened.
Right.
But I just, nickname was MacGyver going through the CA program because it could fix a lot of stuff. And anyway, these guys, the president and vice president of the shipyard, hated computers at the time. This is when we had what we called a luggable. Remember those?
Yes.
I'm dating myself. I'm not as young as I look, right? So you come in with this big luggable and you put it up. It was like a big sewing machine almost,
Right,
and you pop the screen down. You had the green DOS prompt and everything. Anyway, they said, look, these young fellows coming in today would be useless without those computers. Useless, they said. So they went to the IT guy and they said, what can you do to that computer that when he comes back from lunch it won't work? I said, well, I'll just take the fuse out. It won't hurt the computer. Put it back. He won't know. But they were all sitting there waiting to see that I would do nothing when I got back.
Right.
And when I got back, I couldn't figure out why this wasn't working. Took the back off, no fuse. That made no sense. Back in the day, people smoked in the office, so I went over to a lady and said, can I borrow your cigarette pack? And I made a fuse out of the tinfoil and put it in and went back to work. So next thing I got the president and vice president standing behind me going, how's he working on that computer? And I said, oh, it's simple. I put tinfoil in it. So they were so blown away with that story that they introduced me to who became my partners. Because I was really wanting to get out and get in some form of partnership. And that they said, you have to meet this guy.
Right.
He's got the financial side, but he's got this. And it was exactly what we needed. They had money and wanted some time, and I had no money and wanted lots of time. So we did a swap. And so it's funny, I always use those little stories as transitions. It'll always be when you least expect it,
right,
that something very influential will happen. And you just got to have that faith, that just constantly put yourself out in a good way, come across with a positive spirit, and guess what? Harder you work, the luckier you get.
Is this resort the result of that initial partnership, or?
Indirectly, we did some malls and subdivisions up in, where Bears Lake Park is.
Yeah,
We were the founding developers in that. So we literally bought 2 parcels of land there when Costco was just being announced. And they were in the self-storage business that we did some stuff together on that. So when that all liquidated, that was part of the capital that I brought down to here to get incubated and get going.
And so when did you make the first trip down to the Turks and Caicos and know that this is going to be something for me?
First trip was 95. I, got a funny excitement about the place. But you always trust this, and if you have this and it works for you, it's wonderful, because the way I test those things is I tell myself I'm doing it, and then I purposely tell myself I'm not, and I watch to see which way that goes. And when I came down, there was a certain excitement, so I said I got to go down for a second trip. Maybe I'm just glad to be warm, maybe I'm seeing something there isn't, but I had a great feeling about the place, and it only, every time I said I wasn't going to make the move, that sort of got that knot in my stomach, and I said, well, I'm going to do it. But some sleepless nights. I mean, it was a big transition. Turks and Caicos that you see today was not the Turks and Caicos of 25 years ago.
So it's 25 years. I was going to ask how long ago. 25 years ago, you were here. And was this a wasteland? Just nothing. Sandy beach? What was it?
Just sandy with a couple little small properties. Most of the properties at that time had gone into bankruptcy. What is now Beaches, which is a big resort, was actually a small resort that just opened called the Royal Bay, and that had sat unfinished for about 12 or 15 years.
Wow.
And the government forced the developers through the insurance bond to finish it, and that was really one of the only ones. And then there was where Seven Stars is now was called Allegro, and that was in bankruptcy. And so you'd go and look at a piece of property, and there'd be a sign, coming soon, opening 1990, and it would be all bent over, and you're thinking, what am I doing? There's so many bones and skeletons all over the place, but I don't know. It just, I just never second guessed it. I just felt very strongly that there was a big change, and I did like that you could see the mobility of people changing a lot. What used to be a real, come to the island, be isolated, was becoming come to the island and have an extension of your lifestyle here, and that has proven to be very much part of the success today. And especially we're seeing it now in the villa side, versus just the condos. People very heavily getting into villas and making bigger commitments because they really see themselves coming down for 3-4 months, a year, and so they're stepping up to the plate in a little bit of a bigger fashion.
Now, these folks that are coming down, Stan, are they mostly Canadians, or are they from all over?
About 18 to 20% Canadians, and depending on what 75% U.S. and then sprinkling from some European and stuff like that. But predominantly certainly U.S. based, but that's just by sheer numbers of people.
Yeah.
If you actually looked at it as a percentage of population, it's probably a higher percentage of Canadians come to Turks than they do from the U.S. Right. But interestingly enough, the support from the Canadian side is heavier on the real estate side than it is on the resort rental side. So I guess you would say that a wealthy Canadian that has the resources has to just forget about the exchange and look at it as an investment versus an expense, during that. So I think because of that, we get better support on the real estate side. Like I have a slightly higher percentage, or a much higher percentage of buyers in my resorts that are Canadians than I do visitors that are staying as guests, as transient guests.
Interesting. So I'd like to go back to when you came down here and there's bent over signs and it was a bit of a wasteland. What existed on this property
Nothing.
At that time?
It literally is shrubs this high, and that was it. There wasn't even a water line down this way. Like when I did the first resort, the Sands, I had to bring the water line down. There wasn't even a water supply.
Stan, where were you standing when the vision for this place came to be? Do you remember? Like, were you there? You had the sense of where you were?
I used to be fairly detailed about how the views were going to work and everything. So I would actually get them to clear a way down in those big Zoom forklifts that they can put you up like 40 or 50 feet. So I had them stake out these buildings and then put up flags so that I could see what views would remain. And because of that, if you look at this from the sky, this resort doesn't sit straight to the beach. It actually tilts a little like that. And it's because we realized we could open up the views so much more. And that was all from standing on a pallet 50 feet in the air and checking the views from all those different spots. So yeah, it's I love this part of it. Like I'm getting excited to get back into some building side again. I really love that part of it. I'm not as much in love with the operations side.
No.
I'm lucky I have great people to do that. But we have had to really roll up our sleeves and become part of that. But I think we're getting hopefully to some normality again after COVID. And I would like to get back into the development part of the brand.
You actually bring something up that I have to ask. 2 years approximately, we're still a little bit in, out. How has it been for you going through COVID? And in your wildest imagination, had you ever been prepared for anything like that?
You know, for once in my life, it was so bad that I couldn't get worked up. Like, it was just like, this is so bigger than me, right? Like, normally you're beating yourself up, well, I shouldn't have did that, or we should have cut this, or we should have done more advertising, or we messed up here. But you couldn't blame yourself. Like, you were just like, okay, just start doing something, you know? And it was a big deal, because for us, we didn't have any government, poorly for us, as much in the way of government support. They just don't have the ability to do what you can do in the U.S. and write everybody checks. Having said that, I think they tried, you know, with where they could, but we didn't have that kind of support. So you go one day saying you have 700 employees, and the next day you say, "Oh my God, we got 700 employees," you know. And you know, you go from bragging to scared really quick. And so we tried to maintain 30 to 50% wages for them, even though we were closed and didn't have any work. But the scary part is you just didn't know how long it was going to go. If someone said, you know, I have a crystal ball here, which I lost mine at birth, but if you had it, you know, you would say, okay, it's 7 months, get ready for it. But you just didn't know it. You didn't know if it was going to be another year. So it was really hard to know how kind you could be, because it's one thing to be kind, but it's another thing to sort of run out of resources, and then you're not protecting the asset that is employing everybody. So it was an interesting exercise. I'm not asking for it again, but I will say that, you know, it had some good that came out of it. It's really helped tighten up the operating side, because truly you're back to a zero-based budget. Which in an established operating company, everybody says it, but they don't really do it. And so for once, you really got to stop and say, what do we really need to add back to this formula? But I do find, you know, our staffing is different. People, I think the ones that are affected the most from COVID are the staff. I think psychologically they went through a scary time for them of uncertainty, and in some cases people sort of maybe also realize this isn't what I want to do anymore. You know? So you're seeing a lot of that.
Well, I'm going to say something to you. You know what I noticed, and I said this to you, Allan, the other day. So I'm walking with a gimbal, and I've got my phone, and you know, I'm sure this happens a bit down here, but your staff were so happy to wave to me. In many places I've gone, you see a camera, people dive for cover. I'm like, your staff seem really happy. Are they happy now that because the pandemic is over, or is it just generally?
It's part of the way that we supported them during. You know, you're always going to have these roller coaster of moments, but look, we try to do everything we could for the staff, and I will say I'm really touched at how much they do appreciate that. I mean, there's always people that don't, but we had some neat things that we did. We also created a really cool video. I have a friend that's an award-winning artist, Gramps Morgan, and he did a special song for us. I had an idea. It was called "Hope Is on the Way," and you know, it was right at the time when we were closed for several months, and they didn't know when we were opening and everything, but we were starting to get a sense that it could start to hopefully get going. And so I just thought, you know, hope is on the way, and what a neat thing. So I called him and I said, I want hope is on the way, and that we won't let you down. And I said, just if you can put that into a song for me. And he did an amazing job. He kept it that simple. He really did. And the song was amazing. It must have had 100,000 views in 3 days when it came out. And we sent it to the staff are the stars in it. They are the ones, you know, doing all of the acting in it. And he did the background music. You really should look at it. It's by Gramps Morgan, Hope is on the Way.
We will.
Beautiful. It like literally tears you up.
Well, it's interesting. Allan's heard me talk about this. Hope is everything. We even had one of our very successful entrepreneurs say that. Her and her husband had two businesses, both of them almost bankrupt. And I said to her, "What? Like, really?" And I said, "How did you keep going?" She said, "Jerry, hope is everything." Love what you. I will be watching that video.
Hope
definitely.
Is on the Way, Gramps Morgan. You love it.
Stan, I'm listening to you talk and about what you did for your staff and the way you approach things. Where does this leadership come from? Where did you develop these leadership skills?
Yeah, especially from the guy that wasn't going to amount to anything.
It's pretty impressive.
No, well, thank you for saying that. I think it's. I love when we started our conversation before we got on camera, and you said, you know, you changed your career recently because you love doing this. And I think that, honestly, I just naturally love what I do. I love creating buildings. I love creating places. Like, for me to go into a restaurant that we've built, and I can think back of the day that we started with the first square and going through concepts, and now see people in there laughing and kids running around and, all that. There's just nothing more fulfilling. And I think when you love something that you do that much, it's not leading anymore. It's inspiring people. I don't ever really have to, I don't believe, tell people on my team, you have to do this. I try to always come from an angle that you want to do this. You want to be part of, you have to always paint a vision for people. It's like if I asked you to put a puzzle together and I don't show you the cover of the box, how the heck are you going to do that, right? And so I spend more time constantly showing the box rather than telling them where every piece goes.
Right.
And let them put together that. And then people feel part of your vision. So already with our team, with some of the new stuff we're doing, I make sure that they see the new drawings, they see the direction we're going. We talk about, are they ready to take on more? Same with the expansions we're doing. I say to them, guys, I can build more real estate, but are you ready for it? Because, so when you get it that way with people, I find it just becomes natural. I actually sometimes forget I'm in charge. And people remind me. But, it just happens. You just constantly updating the vision and surrounding yourself with good people that attach to it. I'm really more lucky about getting good people around me than I am a great leader.
But again, everything you're saying, Stan, reeks of solid leadership. An ability to have a vision is one thing, but to be able to place people in that and show them where they fit into, that's remarkable stuff. How did that come about? Do you know the inspiration of that, or is it just pure passion for what you're doing that it's coming naturally?
Tenacity and passion. Tenacity
Tenacity
is definitely a big ingredient.
Tell us a little bit about tenacity.
And I say to people, if people will say they want to be more successful in something, normally it'll be business, and I say that doesn't, I try to, when we speak at schools and whatnot, I try to tell the youth, don't rate all of your success by that. If focus on stuff that you truly do love, and we know we all say that, but again, I think that when you don't think about it, when it's just natural, some of these things just come together for you.
Right.
And I often, I jokingly say to you, the harder, like I said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. It's about just being head down and more. Like I say to people, if I look at a guy that's well built, like, we had a model here today, and I'm thinking, geez, I'd like to look like that. So, but if I go to the gym one day, you know what I mean? So it has to be truly part of your priority, and you slowly bend yourself around that. And if you just catch yourself, people think too quickly, like, oh, if I'm going to be successful, I've got 4 months to do it. No, you don't. You have a lifetime to do it. And if you just nibble a little direction every day, it doesn't have to be big bites. The bites will happen, you know what I mean?
Right.
But you have to put yourself in an environment too where it can foster. I can't work out if I don't go to a gym. Or a place that is conducive to working out. So I can't be entrepreneurial if I'm placing myself in a job or a position that's strangleholding me, and I can't act entrepreneurial. I can't engage with entrepreneurs. So there's always a bit of give and take. Sometimes you have to give a little bit and say, I'm not going to make as much doing this, but it's going to head me in this direction. And it's going to get me around entrepreneurial people. The other thing is charity. You want to get yourself around some good people and wealthy people, and, get involved with that. It's a great connector for people that are, I say all the time, good people find good people. And you get yourself around that. So many times I watch people stay in a job where they don't get the contact and they don't get this, and every hour is monitored, and they this and that, and then wonder why nothing's changed in 2 years. Get out and do something charitable. I bet you're going to meet somebody that's incredible, that is very connected in the business community, that will take a liking to you. I mean, the reverse of that is a funny story. There was a study where when they stopped smoking in the buildings, they noticed that a lot of and everybody had to go outside and smoke, that a lot of the nice guys that were working out and doing this weren't getting the promotions, but some of the other guys were.
Right.
And it was because the older crowd, the CEOs, smoked. They would go down for the smoke break, and the other younger guys that were smoking got
That's fascinating.
So there's the reverse of good people find good people, but maybe bad habits find each other. I don't know.
That's right.
But it's funny, whatever that connection is.
Yeah.
You find creative ways to make the connection for whoever it is you admire, want to be like, whatever. Find a way to connect with that person.
Stan, have you ever been in a conversation where you get a bit of a rush and you of good feeling, it kind of overcomes you? I'm having that now, just so you know, because this is a very interesting conversation, isn't it, Gerry?
You.
I want to scratch on something that you said a few minutes ago, and that was speaking at schools. Tell me the importance of kind of giving back to the community in that respect, and that next generation, and what that means to you.
Yeah, this is I jokingly say we're not in Miami here, but this is a village.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I loved and thrived here. I came from a village, Tantown. It's essentially a village. You learn quickly that friends come and go and enemies accumulate, right? So try not to accumulate the enemies. You don't have to do what everybody says and stuff, but you don't have to make enemies either. And so I think I just thrive in the village type of atmosphere. Like I love when we can see the impacts what we do. And I was really honored this year, which is an unbelievable thing, and it's the first time it's been given to someone that's not originally from the island. The Human Rights Commission named me Humanitarian of the Year. It's a rather big deal here, and so that was really touching to me, and it came back. But I think, for instance, the youth, I think here, if we had a look at our biggest vulnerability as a village, a young village coming up, and a changing village, is to ignore the youth and not have them feel empowered to be part of what we do. And that can be very exasperated in that we have a very unusual situation here. We have people that are in the government that can elect, and yet we have a disproportionate amount of people that are expatriates that are investing. And we need to find a way to blend that better, because the two have to think the same. And so to me, it's just healthy and common sense to not have the youth, especially local youth, thinking those expatriate businesses don't want me there. They don't want me to be part of this. They don't want. We got to do everything we can to undo that and make them feel very welcome. And I think any of the problems that we can point at right now probably have to do with our youth. I hate to say it. Our crime, that kind of thing. If there's any lack of employment or job skills, it's all about how we're encouraging and embracing the youth. So we do a lot of that. That's a big part of what we do. I always encourage the team as well to get involved. We'll bring a lot of the youth here, set up for girls and guys, and do mentorship days. And the thing that people forget a lot about donating your time and doing that in charitable works, it's a great team building exercise too. People go and spend all these money on courses and free fall in my hands and all fall. How about you just get out and do something great in the community together? Because you forget that a lot of your employees can't afford to take a day off. And they just can't. They can't afford to give $500. So if you give them that opportunity and say, you know what, I want you to take the afternoon off. You're going to be part of our mentorship program today. They feel great. They go home. They've got the T-shirt. They tell their kids what they did.
Okay, so let's stay on the team thing for a second. That's remarkable that you're doing that. It really is. And you every part of the conversation here today, you keep mentioning team and people that work here, and you're giving all the credit to these people around us here. Tell me what the team here means to you.
Well, I guess I'll put it in one summary. Is it's the reason I get up in the morning. I some years back had somebody that came and wanted to buy the whole shebang, and the scariest morning for me was the morning I woke up thinking I might actually consider it, and getting a vision of what that would mean to be nothing more than a check. And it was scary. It really was. It was like, wow, I would just be a check. And that woke me up, And one time, during the big downturn, I had sort of a aha moment where, we had a project that, not our fault, got really delayed. The economy went crazy, and the government here was shut down for a period of time, and so it was very trying. And I went from a guy that had a 10,000 square foot home with no mortgage to selling that to save the project and living in a little 2-bedroom apartment.
You did that.
Yeah, do what you have to do. And I had an aha moment where it really was sitting on the balcony, almost sort of pouting, thinking, you know what, my investors won't lose, but I could probably potentially lose everything here. And I thought, what a waste of my time, my life to date. Worked 30 years, And then it was just like a moment where it was like, how dare you say that? You've created all these resorts. There's 600 people going to work today that are feeding their families, and you're calling it a waste of time just because you might not have financially gained what you'd like.
Right.
And it was funny, as soon as that silicone chip changed, my whole outlook changed, and we started really gaining traction back again, because I stopped focusing on how it was affecting me and started really focusing on, regardless of the monetary side, look at what we've built as a group. So it just helped me refocus on the team and the importance of it and what it means to me personally. You know, I'm as proud of the team as I am of the buildings any day of the week, right?
Yeah. Well, they make it work, right?
They make it work.
It's a beating, it's the heartbeat of it all. It's not just bricks and mortar.
When I walked around here during COVID and there was no, like, 2 people on the entire site, it really brings home what this whole thing means, from the guests to the staff, and where that really adds to life to the whole thing. The rest of it's very dormant. It's almost eerie.
Now, you said early on that you like building, you're a builder. That's not so much on the operation side, you like the build part. I get that, I really do. What's over the horizon for you? What's next?
Yeah, I think that we're focusing largely on very, very high end. It's sort of seems to be the great niche for us, predominantly. So and I love that it gives you the elbow room to really start to do some special stuff. So I don't know if you got to see, we have another project called the Shore Club that I did across on the other coast, which is only 2 miles away.
Right.
The other coast.
Yeah.
But it's again, it's a, I'll say it, it's a remarkable project, and it's very, very, you'd love it. So we're expanding that. I have 25 acres right next to it, and we're going to do some pretty special stuff there, like sort of, $10 million villas and that kind of thing. And so that gives you that. That's what you dream to do and paint. That's like being given a very expensive canvas to work with, and lots of paints.
Where do you, with that expansion, where do you think your employee level will come in at?
Yeah, I think we'll be starting to nip on 1,000 employees at that point with that and a few other things that we're doing, and that doesn't count when we get busy on construction. Yeah. So when you're on an island that is probably 20,000 people, that's.
I was going to say you're employing a lot of people on the island.
It's a busy day when I go to the supermarket, so.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm sure
there's times where I would put my phone up to my ear and just walk around the store and grab my stuff.
Right.
Because it was the only way not to get into 25 conversations.
Well, so making your way to this room today, was that like a gauntlet of going through?
3 stops.
Well, you apologize. A little tiny bit late, ladies and gentlemen, just a tiny bit. Very apologetic. But I said to Allan, he owns the place. He's probably got a gauntlet of people to go through. Anyway,
it's a small island.
But that in itself speaks to who you are, right? The fact that people want to talk to you as you're walking from place to place, right? Yeah. It may be a burden because you're trying to get somewhere, but it speaks a lot to who you are. Yeah. That they want to talk to you. They want to.
I appreciate you putting it that way. I can't feel anything but blessed on being here. It fits what I love to do so much. I think this is not for everybody. I think there's a lot of people that would say that this doesn't resemble Miami, so I don't like it. Or doesn't resemble what I can do in a big city. And I've had to accept that I can't do the economies of scale that I could do if I was in the States. You'd be doing hundreds of units at a time. But it's not important to me. Everybody will say, "Oh, you could have done 3 more resorts," and I said, "Yeah, but if one of them would have failed, it would have crushed me." So often the staff, if you're with me when I go to the restaurants, and they have to ask, any allergies, and they look at me and they go, "Yeah, I know, Mr. Hartling. Failure, right?" I said, "I'm not that I'm immune to it, but I'm sure allergic to it." I'll say that. So that's almost a common joke among the staff.
What a wonderful way to come to a bit of a conclusion. Gerry, your thoughts?
Conclusion? What are you talking about? I'm not stopping. This is going on. If he's going to give us more time. No,
he loved it.
Stan, as I said, I reached out to you by email, and I think you were traveling, were you, when you responded? And I said to Allan, I said, pardon my French, I said, holy shit, he just got back to me. I found his email on his bio. I'm going to take a shot. That's what we talk about. I mean, listening to you talk, this is actually quite emotional for me because it's just fascinating to be able to sit with you
No, I appreciate that, man. And
It's
a two-way street.
Well, this journey that you were on, and you've been on for 20 years, I've been a semipreneur for 30. Hasn't been the right step for me until a couple of months ago, and when this man phoned me up a couple of years ago, in the middle of the pandemic. So it's just a pleasure. The last 2 weeks, I mean, we were in Greece last week, Stan, and we started on Zoom.
Confirming what you did, right? And let me guess why you guys decided to do that, because you trusted him and you knew he would do it.
100%.
So there you go.
Yeah, 100%.
Good people find good people.
I didn't have any tinfoil. I hooked him without
Keep
the
some with you
tinfoil.
all the time. You'll never know what you're going to use it for. But no, good for you. And I seen on a few of the things that I quickly watched before I came, and I seen that you put a lot of heart into what you do. I know you were thanking, congratulating a mother on her son, and it was an only mother, and it was touching. So don't lose that.
I don't know why I get all weepy-eyed.
Gerry, you love business, buddy, and when you're surrounded by entrepreneurs, you get all worked up and you get emotional.
But you know what?
It's a good thing to see.
If Kevin O'Leary was sitting here, he'd probably slap me for
I'll wait until the camera goes off. Yeah, no, great stuff, guys. I enjoyed the time.
Well, another wonderful edition of Gale Force Winds, and what an absolute pleasure it has been to be in conversation right here at the beautiful Palms Resort in Turks and Caicos, the beautiful island that we're on. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Gerry and I are down here doing business with the Royal Canadian Navy, telling their story, and it couldn't have happened without Stan's support, so graciously offering his hotel for us to work out of and produce our videos out of. Great upload speed, by the way, right here. So it wouldn't happen without Stan's support, so thank you for that. I'd like to leave the podcast with my own piece of advice, and quite frankly, the world needs more Stan Hartling. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, man. Thank you for that.
Cheers.
Guys. A real
Thank you,
pleasure.
Stan.
Thank you,
This has
buddy.
been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds. That's galeforcewinds, WINS.com.